Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Alton, I'm a physical therapist here at Illinois Regional Pain Institute, and today we're going to talk about sex. Disclaimers. I'm not a sexologist. I'm not a sexual therapist. There are people in the area who do that. Hello. Hey, see? I knew it. As soon as I get started. Go ahead and have a seat. There's one right there.
Thanks.
You're good.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Hi there. How are you? Yeah. Good. All right, so we just now got started. We're talking about sex.
Okay.
And I was telling these guys earlier, I have the sense of humor of a 14-year-old boy, so it's,
that's okay.
I'm going to be blushing a lot, I think. Anyway, so sexuality and pain. This is one that's really, really hard to talk about. It's hard for people to talk about sex anyway. And then if you have any kinds of difficulties or any kinds of issues with it, then it becomes extremely difficult. The main thing that I want for people to take away from this is that whatever you choose for your sexual health, okay, whether it's being asexual, not doing anything at all, or whatever partners you choose, whatever you choose, it should be choice. Okay, so if you choose not to participate in any way, shape, or form, that's fine. That's valid choice, but it should be a choice. It shouldn't be the default because you don't feel like you can, or because there are all of these barriers in the way to expressing that part of yourself, okay? So it should be a choice. That's what I want for people to understand. And there are ways to look at the barriers that prevent us from doing what we want to do. And there's ways to look at those and ways to overcome those. Okay, so that's my main thing. You definitely want to talk to your doctors and your health professionals. Dave was great, and the second page is all the medications that can really interfere with your libido, blood flow, and that sort of thing. Okay. If you're on any of these medications, talk to your doctors and say, look, you know what, I'm having an issue here. This isn't working for me because of this side effect, and what can we do instead? Okay. They may have alternate medications. They may have ways to address the side effects that you're getting from it. There may be other therapies to try. If you have a partner, you definitely want to talk to them about what their needs are. Do they understand what is going on with you? Do they understand what your needs are? Okay. That often, it's really funny. We think about sex as what we see on film, what we see on the TV. And it looks so effortless. It looks like people just fall into bed and have this wonderful, great sex, and that's really not how it works, either on film or in real life. If you talk to any actor who's been in a very, very significant sex scene, they will tell you that was the most uncomfortable, the most planned out, the most choreographed scene I've ever done in my life. Okay? Because it takes so much work to make it look that effortless, to make it look that good. Okay? Do yourself a favor and take that kind of time and energy to put into your own experience, whether it's just with yourself or with someone else. Okay? So that negotiation and that planning ahead actually really does have to occur even in the film industry. Okay? We'll get a little bit to negotiations, but also you want to communicate with yourself. There are some barriers that come from within, things like self-esteem and shame, expectations, what you think you should be able to do. And some of what we're going to talk about today is going to be how do you meet yourself where you are right now and what you're able to do physically, what you're able to put forth emotionally, mentally. Okay? So having that conversation with yourself is really, really important. what are some of my internal emotion, internal dialogue stuff, what is that saying? To kind of add another barrier to that. Okay, second one, reframing and rescripting. How many, you don't have to show hands or anything like that, but how many people think of the orgasm as what exactly has to happen? At least on one partner. At least for one, right? Yeah. Okay. So there's tremendous amount of pressure to, achieve this pinnacle. Okay. And there are a lot of people who don't. Okay. And I like to think of it as being like dessert. You can have a satisfying meal without it. Okay. All right. So, and a lot of times once you take that pressure off, it happens. So, but if you can, if you can kind of reframe that as in thinking, that's not the whole point of the experience. The other way that you can reframe it, and I didn't put it down here, but I heard, I was listening to a book, it's called Goddesses Never Age by Christiane Northrup. And she's an OBGYN that does a lot of integrative health. And one of the ways that she framed it is the first feeling of pleasure that you get during this experience is the start of the orgasm. So she defines the entire pleasurable experience as being part of the orgasm. Okay, and she got that from another sexologist person or whatever. I don't know what they call them, but anyway, she got that from them, and kind of okay. So you are experiencing that.
But how much of this is in the mind?
There is a lot of it in the mind, but there's a lot of it in the body as well. And I think that in order to be to address the whole issue, we've got to address both parts of it. So, looking at, for example, in the communication section where I'm saying, communicating with yourself on what are the issues here? Do you have the expectation that within 5 minutes you bet, and then because you've read all these books by these erotic authors, and you better, be able to have an orgasm this way and multiple times in, you have to finish 4 times before he does, or whatever it is. Right? So anyway, she, looking at those kinds of things, or looking at the idea that I can't do this, or that I'm not attractive, or that I don't have any appeal, or that I was talking to a friend of mine, this has been a number of years ago, but he absolutely was flabbergasted when I explained to him that a lot of women don't feel like we deserve if we're somehow unattractive, if we are overweight, or we are this way or that way, or we're not, we feel like we don't deserve to have that experience. And if you think about it, that makes no sense, but that's how a lot of times we feel. And I think we get sold that bill of goods by some of the books that we read and the programs that we watch, things like that, because we're seeing, there was something on YouTube the other day. It was, I don't know if you guys ever heard of College Humor.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Okay, so they have some really interesting, funny videos out there, and this one was pointing out all of the women that shave during the apocalypse. They have no armpit hair during the apocalypse. It's like, on The Walking Dead, they're all cleanly shaven. Now the men aren't.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think that we get these ideas from our surroundings, our culture, about how it should be, when that's really not how it should be. And another example of this is how many women out there have really internalized this idea that men think about sex every 8 seconds, or whatever that number is. Okay, I've heard this statistic I don't know how many times, and I'm first of all, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can you have a thought about sex that lasts less than 8 seconds? so that you're thinking, you know, you would be thinking about it all the time. And secondly, how do they get anything else done? Is that why they can't multitask?
I think so.
Probably so.
They got one box for other activity.
Guilty.
So I'm just saying, you know, I mean, I don't think that I was like thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, I really don't think that that's probably how often.
No,
I
but
don't-
it's pretty far up there on their task list.
Yeah.
I don't know anything
Anyway.
about it.
You don't know anything about it, right? I'm looking at the men in this group. We're not, no, nobody's going to be put on the spot. So, anyway, the whole idea with reframing and rescripting is kind of taking a step back and looking at what are my expectations and how can I readjust those so that I'm not coming away disappointed every time, or I don't even try because why bother, right? Okay. The last thing on this reframing and rescripting is pleasuring. How many people think of sex when you hear the word pleasure? You don't? No? Honestly, I think that word pleasure has a certain sexual connotation in our
Yeah.
culture.
It does.
Okay. One of the things that we have learned is that pleasure outside of sex can actually increase the body's willingness and readiness for sexual pleasure. Okay? So doing things that make you happy and make you feel good can really kind of set the stage and get the body primed for any kind of pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's wearing that favorite soft sweater, or taking a hot bath, or you know, reading a book, or whatever it is, doing those things, you know, making sure that you have the essential oils or the perfume that you like to have around, or scented candles, or you know, and we're talking food, we're talking all the senses, pleasurable experiences can help to prime that. And why that works is if you think about the fight or flight reaction that we have, you're thinking about your body's prepping to run from or fight a bear. Okay, so your body is going to amp up anything that's going to help you do that. So muscle tension, heart rate, blood pressure, increased breathing rate. It's going to dilate your eyes so that you can see better to fight the bear or run from the bear, right? But it's also going to shut down anything that you don't really need to do while you're fighting the bear, okay? So you don't need to digest a sandwich. You don't need to be getting it on with your honey. You don't need to be, you know, a lot of those things go by the wayside. You don't need to be healing from the flu. You need to be fighting the bear. So all of those things get pushed off to the side. When you increase the amount of pleasure in your life, whether it's, you know, like I said, whatever happy pleasure, not sex, is going to give the body a signal that we're not fighting a bear, we're in rest, relax, and restore mode. Okay? And when you're in rest, relax, and restore mode, all the things that got shut off for fighting the bear, like your immune system, your reproductive system, your GI system, all of those things are going to ramp back up again. Okay? It also allows blood flow to go to areas of the body that aren't responsible for fighting or fleeing, so the pelvic floor versus the legs. Does that make sense?
It takes away pain too.
It does. It does.
Very much does.
They've actually done some studies about,
Does
you know,
for me.
happiness and your mood having everything to do with your pain levels. It's really interesting. I have a patient who has been in pretty severe 8, 9, 10 out of 10 pain for the last 7 years. He went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, no pain. Didn't take his medication, didn't wear his brace, didn't need it, you know, no pain at all. And he was like, he said, I was about ready to go pack up and move to Hawaii. You know, what's the magic there? And the doc was like, you know what? That actually had more to do with taking stress out of your life and not being, you know, yeah.
Sitting around and dwelling on it.
Not sitting around and dwelling on it, but enjoying some other things. So And I had another patient tell me how she has been having neck and back pain for a very, very long time. And she went to, I don't know what it was, but it was some sort of a street fair in Pekin. She had a great time with her family. She loved it. And she was like, you know what's really odd is I wasn't painful at all during that time. As soon as I got home, it all kind of came rushing back. Okay? Does that mean the pain's only in your head? No. Okay? No. But it does mean the brain is pretty powerful in being able to either ramp up or ramp down the sensations. Okay? So yeah, another experience, another reason to try to increase the amount of pleasure. So, you know, going to YouTube and finding some really funny videos, finding some really great comedians that you enjoy watching.
Or awesome gameplay.
Awesome
Yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, all of this stuff. So I'm giving you guys license. We live in a culture where having fun isn't really, you know, it's really only for the rich people. You notice this? Like, you know, if you have any kind of money issues and you go out and you have a good night or fun night, everybody's looking at you like, I thought you couldn't afford to eat.
You have
What
to
does-
treat yourself.
Yeah,
once in a
that
while.
doesn't mean that I don't have the right to have fun.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know, this is, you know, and it's so taking time off. I'm giving you guys all permission. Have a good time. Find something that you enjoy that you can do.
Next month we bring a 12-pack.
That's right. That's right. I'll make sure to have a driver so I don't have to drive. Okay. 3, experimentation. All right. This is where spending some quality time with yourself is really good, because it can just give you a chance to decide what you like and what you don't like. And it, you know, we talk about erogenous zones. Most of them are overlooked, and some people have weird ones. I mean, weird. They were all weird. I think, you know, but some people have placed them in places where you would not expect at all. You know, there are cultures in Asia where wearing short sleeves is not okay because this is a pretty sexy area. So they want you to have 3/4 sleeves or longer because this is an erogenous zone right here. Now, I don't know about my elbows, but you know. Another thought, I don't know if anybody has been involved or has seen any of the Outlander shows at all.
No.
This is on Showtime or whatever, okay? But these are men in kilts running around everywhere. And I'll tell you what, when the show came out, there were pictures of what they termed knee porn. Because these guys were running around in these kilts, and so you would get this little tiny glimpse of their leg. And women were going nuts. Going, look at the, oh my God, look at the knee. I mean, and of course the guy's pretty handsome too, but, you know, it's, you look, and there are all kinds of areas of the human body that can be erogenous without having to be in a painful area of your body, okay? The other thing is that, you know, even people with, you know, paraplegia or quadriplegia can have erogenous zones that are in their feel zones. So people that, you know, are from the nipple down are paralyzed and can't feel anything, right up above may have an erogenous zone. So that can move according to what your brain is experiencing and processing every day. So that said, look in places that you didn't think there might be, okay? There are also ways to experiment with touch, you know, bath water, different textures, that sort of thing, to see if there are things that seem to work better for you or less better for you. Obviously, there's toys and lube out there. I have lube in all caps because if there's anything that is detrimental to an experience, it's not having enough slippery stuff. Okay? Because that can be painful. So, invest in some lube without going too much into it. try and look for one that has no sugar in it.
Mm.
Because the last thing that our genitalia need is sugar. There's really no need for having sugar there. Okay? All right. And positions. And of course, this comes into the negotiation issue. A really great book that I got a lot of this information from is called The Ultimate Guide to Sex and Disability. They have a lot of really great suggestions in there. It's a really sex positive book. They're not judgmental in any way, shape, or form as long as everybody is a consenting adult. Okay? So they have, talk about vibrators. You can get some that are for the back. They have a long handle on them. So if you can't reach comfortably, you can get something with a longer handle that will help become, okay? There are lots of different ways to position yourself with pillows or something that you can kind of try to get yourself in a position where you're not experiencing as much pain. Okay? When you negotiate with your partner about this, and again, it doesn't feel very sexy to make plans, but it can be sexy to talk about it. This is what I want to do. How can we get this done? How can you can get, there's all kinds of books out there that you can buy that have all kinds of different suggestions for positions, and some of them are downright funny because I don't know if you've seen those yoga straps or whatever that you hang from the ceiling, and I'm like, really? No way. No way that's happening. I'm going to break something. Multiple things.
My way.
But also just keep in mind that most sexual encounters aren't spontaneous. But there are some things that you can talk about to negotiate. Time of day. Some of us are worse in the morning. Some of us feel better in the morning. Some of us need a day when we have fewer demands. Some of us need a few hours to recuperate afterwards, not just afterglow, but energy-wise. Timing of medications. You might want to consider your pain relief versus any drowsiness that may kick in. Okay. And then wanting to schedule in enough time to try different stuff. We tend to kind of go. We're creatures of habit, and that extends to the bedroom as well. So trying new stuff can really be titillating, as well as important for finding ways that can be beneficial to both partners, assuming there is a partner. Anybody have any questions up to this point? Following along pretty good? Okay. Resexualization. This is the act of kind of rediscovering yourself as a sexual being. And I put this in here because many people just don't. It's kind of like I said, if there's one thing I want everybody to take away is that it should be a choice. And so a lot of times we just kind of go, oh God, that's just on the back burner. Because we just don't have time, energy, whatever. And like I said, so this is the act of just rediscovering yourself as a sexual being. And being able then to make that choice on whether or not this is something for now. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you are, those energies are I have a friend who is in the midst of some pretty heavy duty self-examination. She said, I just don't have a desire right now. I'm like, that's because you're busy rebirthing yourself.
But I can understand that too, because you're so depressed.
Yeah.
You're all into everything that's going on in your life, the pain. Dealing with that is a lot in itself.
Yes, it is. That takes a ton of energy.
It takes a lot.
It does. It does. And this is only one way that you can explore, like you said, that happiness, pleasure, that sort of thing can really take down the pain. Maybe not 100%, like we're talking about those few examples, but any little bit. Most of my patients are like, what, honey, I don't care if you take me from a 7 to 6.5. That's progress. It goes a long, long way. So, just carving some time out for yourself just to explore some of this. There are definitely adult materials available out there to read. Some are better than others. There's a website, for example, literotica.com. And let me tell you what, they have quite literally anything and everything you would want to read about and maybe not want to read about on that. They have different, you can always put your browser in private mode. So nobody knows that you were there.
Let's go, yeah.
But they have on there different, they have one erotic couplings, which is this one-on-one consensual sex. They have, BDSM stuff. They have mind control. They have, just weird stuff. And then they even have a section on there that's not, for non-sexual stories, But at any rate, there's tons of stuff on there. It's like, wow, there's a lot of people writing this stuff. It is all amateur stuff, so you're gonna have lots of typos and lots of other stuff, but whatever. There's also lots of published books out there. I know even Book Nook down on University has an erotica section. So there's lots of opportunities for reading material. Increasing your blood flow. This is really interesting. The book that I was listening to by Christiane Northrup, she was talking about how just standing up can really, really increase the blood flow to the area. In fact, she said that the men who have sit-down jobs, they're sitting 8 to 10 hours every day, are far more likely to experience erectile dysfunction than a guy who stands or walks for a living. So, good news. You don't sit for a living. Sorry. Anyway, so just standing up. So standing up can make a difference. Walking, yoga, using more mass, using a vibrator to increase the blood flow to the area can really help. Just thinking about that zone of your body will increase blood flow. Okay. Again, the self-pleasuring, stress-free way to learn your erogenous zones and learn how your brain works, learn what you like, what you don't like. It's been recommended several times that in different books that I've read that you set a timer so that you don't feel that pressure to keep going until you get to the, proverbial end. Okay, just set a timer, 10 minutes. I'm going to spend 10 minutes exploring and then we're stopping. If you want to keep going, by all means, go right on ahead. But this way you don't feel like you have to. Okay. Think about it more. Read, watch, dream, think. I do have a note on pornography, and with the risk of sounding like I'm on a soapbox, because I really don't have anything against visual pornography per se. But keep in mind, when you watch these films, most people don't look like that. The grooming that's done in that region that is now extremely popular with anybody under the age of 30 is only for the camera shot. It's not for any other reason.
That's true. That makes sense.
You just want to get it out of the way so you can see what's going on. No two people look the same. I took a class in doing physical therapy for women with incontinence issues and pain, pelvic pain, including men who have any kinds of issues with that. And it was really interesting because the way they brought it up, it's like we all have the same parts. Like we all have eyes, nose, mouth. Okay, we all have the same parts down there. Well, obviously men and women don't have the same parts, but within your same sex, we all have the same parts.
Right.
Okay, they all look a little bit different, and they all combine differently to make up a different look. So we all have our faces all look different. Same with down there, we just don't look. Okay, and that's another really big recommendation is that you look. Get a hand mirror, get it out, look at it, What does it look like? What happens when you touch here? Okay. So no two people look the same. Okay, we have this huge issue with young women going and getting labiaplasty because they think they need to look like, I don't even know who, is, but yeah, I don't even know the names of these people, but so they need to look like that instead of what they actually look like. Okay.
Designer surgeries.
Designer surgeries, yes, and that's just, I think that's sad because we all are unique. I'll put together just slightly differently. Note that pornography is pretty formulaic. Okay, it's focused on the money shot. Yeah, okay, they're kinks. Okay, so that's different, but that's not the kind of creativity that you're going to need to learn how to negotiate your weird back or your neck that won't do X, Y, or Z, or the leg that needs to be propped up so that it doesn't swell. Whatever it is that needs to happen, you got to be a little bit more creative than the pornography. And that there's my final issue with the pornography that's out there right now is that there is really no way to guarantee that all the participants, men and women, are over the age of 18 and that they are willing participants. There's just really no way to guarantee that, and so that's my issue. Those are my main issues with pornography. Again, I'm not against it per se. I think there are a lot of newer ones that are out now that are trying to focus in on, better storylines and couples and that sort of thing. If anybody finds a way to absolutely guarantee that everybody's over the age of 18 and that they weren't sold into slavery, I would be more than happy to expose that source. Anyway, so the increasing the non-sexual pleasure in your life, we talked about that a little bit, but that does increase the dopamine, the serotonin, nitric oxide, oxytocin, all of these happy brain chemicals, and decreases the cortisol and the adrenaline. When you have an orgasm, there's a huge cortisol dump. It dumps it right out of your system. It is an amazing way to get your whole body to kind of reset if you can get there. Now, wait a minute. I just totally did that, didn't I? If you can get there. Just experiencing sexual arousal also increases cortisol dump. So, all right. Getting up from the chair, we talked a little bit about that. So there's some supplements out there that can improve circulation. You really need to double check and make sure that there isn't any interactions with the medications that you're taking. You could absolutely search online for, I did a search and I think, a bunch came up. Most of the websites were like 10 different herbs that will help increase, separate ones for men, separate ones for women. The typical ones that I found were ginseng, ginkgo biloba, horny goatweed. I had to put that on the list. For real. There's and then there's kava, there's L-arginine, which some studies have suggested that can actually help with fibromyalgia pain. So if you have that, that can maybe because it increases the circulation, and then the nerves that are complaining about not getting the blood flow that they need calm down, and so that can help with. But again, that's blood flow. Vitamin E.
Maca works for me.
Huh?
Maca.
Maca?
I take it in powder form.
Okay.
Mix it with about that much hot water.
Okay.
It's got awful to drink, but it gives me energy and makes me feel lighter, and it
Okay.
does a lot of good in manland.
Okay, very good.
More than I need.
Okay, and you spell that what? M-A-C-A?
CC.
CCA.
Or AA. CC. CCA.
Okay.
M-A-C-C-A.
M-A-C-C-A.
They
Okay.
said it naturally yours was you lose a lot in the processing in the pill form.
Okay.
So they suggested. But that was, I took it for energy.
Uh-huh.
Being tired and stuff all the time.
Right. And then you're like, wait a minute, what's happening there?
Couldn't go out in public.
So maybe every other third day or half of it, maybe.
Works for me anyway.
All right,
Or
so
overworked.
hey, no. Sometimes that's what you want. Any questions?
Like you said, a mouthful.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna chuckle at what you just said.
There's that 14-year-old boy.
Right. So yeah, there's.
Cinch it, Jimmy.
Careful, you're right there.
Yeah, I was, wasn't I? Oh, boy.
Okay, so did you have anything that you wanted to add about medications? I mean, I know you have a little paragraph down here about trying to fix it by kind of adding on.
Yeah. The only thing I would say was, especially with the natural product stuff, be very careful, because that whole industry is not regulated like prescription meds are. They're
True.
totally different. They're regulated as food products. In fact, that's kind of how their food additives and is what they are considered. So they don't have to go through the testing. They don't have to go through the purity standards. They don't have to.
So do you know do they have any kind of like self-regulatory body that you know you can say, like, this group of people will test your product for you to make sure that it's safe and pure?
No.
And
No.
not at this time, huh?
You know,
Not
there's
just-
a medication that you buy at the food store, health food store, a TENS. Have you heard of that?
Oh,
It's
extends?
a TENS, is it a 10? It's supposed to work like Ritalin. Instead of Ritalin, you take the, is it a
Oh, okay, I see what you're
10?
saying.
Yeah, a 10.
A
A
10s.
TENS.
And I was just wondering, does that work like Ritalin or? We don't know. But I mean, are these medications powerful that you buy that's supposed to be intended to work like Ritalin?
They can be, in the sense that they don't actually list everything or have to list everything that's in there. So they can be contaminated with a lot of different things. There's even been prescription products thrown in there to get a desired effect for the promotion for sale. But the big thing is nobody regulates them.
Seems like that could be very dangerous.
It can be. A lot of these herbs actually really can be extremely powerful.
Right.
Or even prescription drugs, if you look at the list, they scare me. And, you know, and they're being
The side
controlled.
effects,
Yes. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that, I mean, the take home, you know, with any of these, you know, supplements or whatever, the take home is that what we're looking to do is increase blood flow, for the most part. Okay?
Exercise will do that.
Exercise and movement will do that. Okay? So even if you can't stand up, even if it's just stretching this way and coming back up, even if it's, you know, this, any kind of movement is going to increase the blood flow. And if you have that, you know, honest and truly, like if you have issues with your libido and your blood flow and or lubrication or whatever, you have those issues. If you bring those up to your doctor, that may be another clue of what's going on. I think that we get in, at least right now in this country, we get kind of honed in to one particular, you know, oh, my back hurts. And so you go to a back doctor. When you may be missing the fact that, you know, your gut hasn't been right since you were a little kid and we're on, you know, antibiotics for, you know, 6 times in 1 year because the strep kept going around the school. Or, you know, maybe, you know, your kidneys aren't working right because you have a blood sugar issue that's not quite controlled. You know, we miss a lot of these things because we get pigeonholed into seeing one doctor for one thing, you know, because you have your lung doctor and your heart doctor and your kidney doctor and your liver doctor and your GI doc and whatever else. I mean, you see all these different people. And I think this is a real benefit to going back to general practitioner, to make sure that somebody is overseeing how all of these different systems work together. Okay. And that may be a good place to bring up, gosh, you know what, I'm having this issue as well. Well, what's going on with that? Well, check your hormones out. See if your hormones are doing funky things. Your hormones might do funky things because you've been so stressed out for so long that your adrenals are starting to burn out and your cortisol levels are up. And, when the body has a choice, I'm either going to make a sex hormone or make cortisol. It's going to make cortisol because you have to have the cortisol to survive. You don't really need the estrogen. Okay? Or the testosterone or the progesterone or the whatever. Okay? So a lot of those things can really be a clue as to what's going on with that.
Kind of an interesting question is, probably the last, 15 years or so, has been the big cholesterol, get your cholesterol down, save hearts, whatever. Well, cholesterol, plain old dirty, nasty cholesterol, as everybody likes to promote it, is the building block for estrogen and testosterone. And without cholesterol, the body can't manufacture those hormones. And a lot of other ones too. It's, your cortisol is also in there too. It's a little further down the chain, but that, and that's the basic initial building block is cholesterol.
And they've actually found in studies that people with higher cholesterol have better sex drive, higher libido, better sex.
Well, does it matter if HDL or LDL or it's just the whole cholesterol?
I think it's the total cholesterol.
Just the initial
that's interesting.
cholesterol, right? And I mean, you think of all the Lipitors, Questors, Mevacor, Zocor that's out there, and now there's a whole lot of men with low testosterone levels.
Right.
I mean, that's advertised on TV. Low T. See your doctor. Okay, did we create that with all the cholesterol meds and cut cholesterol out of your diet and stuff like that? Nobody really has approached that. It would be a tough one to prove, but.
I think we have such a balance in our body, and we've been kind of walking around with a big mallet like whack-a-mole, going, let's bash this down, bash that down, bash that. We're not paying any attention to what that does to the rest of your body.
Right.
Yeah.
And certainly we're starting to understand that some of the statins maybe are kind of not very good for you.
Right.
That they really cause more problems down the line, and that we're looking at cholesterol and heart disease and finding, there's actually really not that big of a correlation. So, and I'm certainly not well versed enough in that to talk about that today, but I think we really do have to stop and say, okay, is this really the best practice for me to be on this medication? Especially if you're taking more than 2 medications, you're going to have interactions that we aren't aware of, because we've only studied 2 medications at a time. So they'll check, ibuprofen and acetaminophen to see if there's interactions there, and they'll check, acetaminophen and diphenhydramine or Benadryl for interactions, but they won't check all 3 together for interactions. Okay? So what happens when you throw 12 of them in the box? And what kind of interactions are we getting there? So, I think asking, and a lot of doctors may get frustrated with the question, and maybe not because they feel like you're questioning their method of treatment, but they may be frustrated because they don't feel like they have the time to talk to you about it as well, because they have like 8 minutes.
If
you're lucky. But I think that this is a valid question. Is this really the best way? And we know that it takes about 17 to 20 years for information from the studies that they're doing, the research that they're doing, to trickle down to the average practitioner and the insurance companies. Okay, we know, for example, that body mass index is a really stupid way to determine if you're overweight or not. And yet, Medicare makes us do it every single time we see somebody new.
Right.
Okay? Because why? Because they have to have some sort of a gauge. They have to have some sort of a benchmark. But it's going to take a while for us to come up with something better, for one. For two, for, you know, Medicare to go, oh, well, we need to change the way we do things. Well, that takes a long time. You know, and that's true with all the other insurance companies as well. And it's not just Medicare. It's not just the government. It's, you know, you think about all these huge insurance companies, and they've got people who are just out of high school. They have to teach how to deny or accept a claim. So there has to be a formula that they can punch into a computer and make it easy. Okay, that means all of those computer programs have to be changed. So it takes time for what we learn in research to trickle down. But what drives that is people.
Right, and
Saying,
no person is the same. I mean,
I
nothing
don't
is
want
individualized.
this extra medication. What else can I do? Okay, we got doctors to prescribe lots of medication because we said, as a population, I don't want to change my diet. I want to take a pill. Is there just something I can take because changing my diet's too hard, or doing the exercise? You know, so we can change it the other direction too. We just have to be informed and empowered.
I figure if I got that way without drugs, I'll deal without them.
Very true. Very true. All right, any questions? We kind of got off topic a little bit, but okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.